I mentioned in a recent video how the author, Robert Matthew Walker, who wrote the book Elvis Presley, A Study in Music, said that the song Golden Coins from the Harem Holiday or Harum Scarum album was Elvis's rock bottom moment. And in fact, he's very dismissive of the album as a whole. He says that it's completely insignificant compared to the music that the Beatles were making around that time, combining Indian and Western music. But I think that's a really silly argument to make because the Beatles were actually trying to create something unique, whereas Elvis and the musicians and the songwriters, they weren't kidding themselves. They knew that they weren't making great art on this album or any of the other soundtrack albums around that time. It was purely an exercise in making money and entertainment. Having said that, if an album is not fun to listen to, then you've got to call it out. As it happens, I actually do quite like this album. When I got the RCA album collection box set, the 60 CD set, a few years ago, I played Harum Scarum and it was the first time I listened to it in many years. But I enjoyed the first few songs. I played up to the end of Shake That Tambourine and I thought, okay, that'll do for now. And then I listened to the rest of the songs later. And it struck me that, in actual fact, LPs are probably the best way to listen to a lot of the Elvis soundtrack LPs, particularly the later ones, because they do have a sort of a sameness about them in the music. Albums such as Blue Hawaii with the Hawaiian arrangements, Fun in Acapulco with the Latin music arrangements, and Harum Scarum with the Eastern arrangements. So I tend to think that listening to one side at a time is probably about right. But as I say, I did enjoy listening to the album, and it's an album that the fans love to hate, but I quite like it. The problem I have with it is what you might call lazy songwriting. Have a listen to these three songs and see if you can hear anything that they have in common. I'm talking about the music, not the vocal melody. Just listen to the music.
Is your love, darling, just a mirage? From the distance you call to me like an oasis. When you meet by chance, it's not just by chance, it's kismet. So close, yet so far from paradise.
All of those songs feature what I call the Eastern riff. You can hear something similar in Golden Coins as well, except in Golden Coins the melody just keeps going down a semitone at a time and it doesn't come back up again, it just keeps going down.
Golden coins I will bring to you, silver trinkets and rubies too.
I do understand the temptation to fall back on musical cliches like that because the songwriters were under pressure to come up with these songs in a very short period of time. And it may also have been the case that if they'd come up with something that was too adventurous musically, it might not have been accepted for the movie. Some of the songs that appealed to me when I was young no longer appeal to me as much. I'm thinking specifically of Shake That Tambourine and Hey Little Girl, although Animal Instinct with its bone-shaking drums is still very appealing. Most of the songs I like now are the more laid-back ones that you can find on side one. And probably my favorite song is Mirage. I think that's got something to do with the way it's done in the movie.
Is your love, darling, just a mirage?
There's Elvis out cold for some reason. Beautiful woman kisses him. He wakes up, he sees her, and he does what any man would do in that situation. He bursts into song. It gets me every time, that. Very funny. And for those of you on Smut Watch, how about these lyrics from Golden Coins?
In exchange, I plead on my knees for the pleasures of love.
No? Am I reading too much into that? Well, the lyrics were written by Florence Kay, who also wrote There's Gold in the Mountains, and she readily owns up to including double entendres in Elvis's lyrics. Golden Coins is one of those songs that you couldn't get away with nowadays. I mean, think about it. He's saying to her, I'll give you stuff if you know. We've seen how the setting of a movie can lead to some pretty corny songs, such as the carnival themed songs of Roustabout or the hillbilly songs in Kissing Cousins. But in the next movie, Elvis played a nightclub singer traveling the cities of Europe. So you might think that there will be fewer bad plot songs in this movie on the album. And I think there are fewer bad plot songs on this album. However, we have to remember that Double Trouble is the movie which gave us Old MacDonald, one of the most notorious Elvis movie songs. And the song appears in the movie, of course, because Elvis and Annette Day are trying to leave town in a hurry. Sorry, wrong soundtrack. Take 3. I got the giggles after that, and I'm doing this on another day. You've got to have a bit of fun when you're doing these videos. So where was I? Okay, so apart from Old MacDonald, the soundtrack itself is a reasonably enjoyable listen. Although for me, Double Trouble is one of the weaker movie theme songs. And once again, Mort Schumann, the songwriter, was not particularly enthusiastic about that song. If you remember, he didn't have anything good to say about what every woman lives for in the Frankie and Johnny movie. And I just want to read to you what he says about Double Trouble. He says, Double Trouble, well, I couldn't care less. All I cared about was getting high. I have no idea how the song goes, which shows you how much I cared about it. Elvis must have known what those songs were like. He was past caring, and he was caught up in a terrible, vicious cycle. Well, on to more positive stuff. The rockers on the album, I think, are actually pretty strong. Short and sweet with a lot of energy. And I do like the guitar sound on the single Long-Legged Girl. And there's also an excellent alternate take of that song on the box set Today, Tomorrow and Forever. It's a lot more rough and ready than the single version or the album version, but it's also very good. And you can also hear that distorted guitar sound in one of the bonus songs, It Won't Be Long. And that was a song that was written for the movie, but was ultimately not included. And that's another good song as well. Could I Fall in Love is one of my favorite Elvis movie ballads, with Elvis singing the harmony part as well. And you can actually hear the demo version of that song on one of the CDs that comes with this book, Writing for the King, and it was performed by Malcolm Dodd. The version that Malcolm Dodd recorded is completely different to that of Elvis's, and it sounds like a pre-rock and roll type of vocal arrangement. And Elvis basically took it and turned it into an Elvis ballad. So if you can find that version online, Malcolm Dodd, Could I Fall in Love, it's definitely worth hearing just to compare it with Elvis's version. City by Night is another song that I enjoy on this album. It's got a laid-back, jazzy arrangement, and it's quite an unusual song for Elvis. I Love Only One Girl is the big production number in the movie. This one I think is best enjoyed watching the film rather than on the album. The melody comes from an old French song, Auprès de ma blonde, which means something like with my girlfriend or next to my girlfriend in English. Bit of French for you there, bit of culture. 7 years of French at school didn't go to waste. There's So Much World to See, on the other hand, is a song which works better on the album rather than the movie, because in the film Elvis is trying to leave Annette Day once again, and he can't do it, he can't bring himself to do it, and he suddenly starts singing There's So Much World to See. And I know it's a musical, and you know, in musicals people sing when they wouldn't sing in real life, but that one seems particularly jarring. As for the non-movie bonus songs, there are 3 on here, 2 of which were previously released songs, and I think this was the first time that RCA included previously issued songs as bonus songs. They were Blue River and Never Ending. Blue River I've always liked, even though the drums and the vocals sound distorted, but I prefer the 90-second version on the Essential 60s Masters box set. Never Ending sounds like a difficult song to sing. It has a shifting melody and it's very well performed, but for some reason it doesn't really appeal to me. And the last song is an old song from 1963, What Now, What Next, Where To, and that was written by Don Robertson. And it's not really vintage Don Robertson, which is perhaps why it was left in the vault for so long. It only really takes off at the point where Elvis sings Won't Heaven Send an Angel. At that point, the Jordan's vocals start soaring in the mix, and you can really start to feel the desperation in the song. But it never really takes off apart from that point. This album reminds me of Frankie and Johnny in that there aren't really any 10 out of 10 moments, but it's not a particularly bad album. However, it does have Old MacDonald, so that means that it's going below Frankie and Johnny in my rankings. And going back to Harum Scarum, I'm going to put that one just above Frankie and Johnny in the rankings. I think it's time I looked at a couple of the early soundtrack LPs, so that's what I'll try and do in the next video in this series. Thanks for watching. Cheers. And I think there are fewer bad plot songs in this film, although we have to remember that Double Trouble is the movie in which Old MacDonald appeared. And it, of course, appears because Elvis and Annette Day are trying to escape. But